doing right now, which is kind of poking at a lot of different things that happen. Okay, cool. So let's just kind of grouping this in the best way we could do it. I'm going to talk about the minor pentatonic stuff first, and at the bottom of the page, I'm going to write a 1 down there. I'll timestamp when we switch to talking about other stuff. Cool. So I've just got a broken string on my ESP35, so I'm on the acoustic squad. But at any rate, so a lot of the time it does go, I'm just using 4 fingers, 4 frets, so I'll use my pinky here. When we're playing this particular scale, it doesn't, we want to use our ring finger there. Like, you're always seeing people on TV, you're like, why doesn't he use his pinky? That guy's sick. And it's because we're so often bending there and doing things like hammer-ons or sliding into this box in front of it that we talked about. So here I am playing the A minor pentatonic, which is on the second to last line on the page, just going like, so here we're in normal, I'm using my hand like we normally do. And there's our first note that we bend all the time, and that's like all 3 fingers. And we were talking about going like as a pull off, where you just pick the string once. And then we get to this, where this finger kind of comes along for going, or whatever. So anyway, just that's our scale. And this is inefficient. It'd be more efficient to do this, but we're talking about things that will facilitate our ability to do like slides and hammer-ons. So reason one to do it this way is because we slide. We bend a bunch there. Cool. So there's the scale just on its own. Cool. And I really want to see you being aware of using your fingertips rather than like flop down, where you're gonna ever do this or be in jeopardy of like hitting the string beneath it by accident, coming straight in at the strings. So the biggest trick is gonna be ceasing to play like this, which was like, that's totally how you play C and all the first bunch of things that you learned. Right. But then there's all this other stuff. So there's classical thumb position, which is like, when you went to play a minor bar chord, you went to it right away because and then down by the second fret it was tripping you out because of our elbow being there. It's like, man, it's all the way over there, versus just doing that, so much as shoulder, elbow. So there's really just 2 thumb positions. There's that one, which is like I have to reach, or I am playing a bar chord of some sort. And then there's thumb over top, where there's a huge happy medium between this, which again we end up like way behind the instrument with not a lot of our finger available, and just hooking your thumb over the top. When you do that, you want to be actually like flush with the fretboard, where I'm making this C shape and touching here. Right. We want to avoid creating a bunch of space back there like that. And again, that goes back to like it was really hard to push down at one point. Right. Particularly with bends, you've been trying to do them in like thumb down here, and that's why your style right now doesn't have a lot of bends in it. There's a lot of single notes, because that's what we do with our thumb over top. But then it seemed like, man, that's really hard. So yeah, cool. There we are. It's either I am doing reachy stuff like when I'm playing this major scale, or I'm doing things where I need to be bending a lot of our thrashy stuff or fast playing. Is really what are you playing dependent. Cool, so anyway, there's that scale. We bend here a lot, and the thing I did to work on index position was talk about going like, just as once picked, and that like troubleshoots the whole, was my index finger there on time thing. So if you're going, we're super psyched, and then when we get down to the low strings, we tend to be doing more, you can go, but we tend to get on like some nudie stuff there, and then need to kind of play more up there. Cool, so, there we go. At like 4 minutes in, we talked about this little box out in front of that in every single key. That's something we mostly just do up on the 2 high strings. There's me going like 5/8, 5/8, and then sliding there. There's this index ring, where we bend on our ring a whole lot, like. And this is like an easy, just 2 fret spread. So it's like, here's me doing this stuff, which is adjacent to this. So it's just like an add-on. Cool, so there's your structure for minor pentatonic. Stereo instructions for using it are like, if I want to do this in B, just put your index finger on B on the 6th string, do the same stuff we were doing with B, 12th fret, or open, or whatever. Great, so section. And you will find this full riffs are pentatonic box 1. It's just kind of like what works. Really swimming upstream to try to avoid common scales. Anyway, so we talked about the major scale, and let's just do that next really quickly. So I'm going to just throw in 2 up there, and that is like 4 minutes in, actually, crossing out the, or 4 minutes in, we talked about that, and that. Cool, so yeah, A major scale. Let's suppose I got my index on A, and I'm doing shit, which included this note right here, like I'm a minor chord, versus this note, like I'm a major chord, like when you do that. So yeah, like starting with your middle finger on this. This is something that happens in classical position, wherever you are on the fretboard. Holding a pen is not part of your process. Yeah, so, middle pinky, and then the rest of it's just comfortably under your fingers. That's going to feel weird always. But if we look at what we just did, that includes this thing that you've been using as a shape, and so we don't want to like be the guy who reinvents the wheel and does it this way. So those are this thing we just played includes that note, this note, and this note. So yeah, it's no less this pattern to be like. So sometimes we use our strong fingers. So that I was just doing a hammer on rather than like going like or whatever, which is nearly impossible. So yeah, it's like classical language course, conversational language course. It really depends on what you're playing. Cool, so there's like a major scale in one position on the fretboard you can mess around with, and it includes the stuff we were doing here. So bend, 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 slide, 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 trying to move away from a super single notey style, and having your hand here has made it feel very I'll stay positional versus flowing up and down the fretboard, and that doesn't mean we want to be like Eddie Van Halen or something like that, but just the ability to move between positions on the fretboard is going to involve moving more your shoulder and elbow without a wrist juxtaposition changing. Cool, so there's that. And bringing us to this bright box thing we talked about, like, if we were to discuss when do we use this pentatonic minor thing, well, like I wrote on the page, it's like heavy stuff, blues stuff, and stuff in minor keys. What we've just been discussing is for like major keys and things that are like hybrid. I'm bright as opposed to dark. Cool. So we already talked about like a classical way to do it, and then there's this thing where if you just start like the minor pentatonic, but when you get to here, you go, or just that note. It's really common to do it with a hammer on, not a hammer on in the sense like I'm playing this melody, but just going into it, especially hitting those together. So yeah, like whatever, and then we go, and this is like a hybrid major scale, blues scale. So yeah, when we get to this, sometimes I wrote ring or pinky on the page. Sometimes we totally will do this, but like for going like playing fast or whatever, and sometimes we'll use our ring finger for it because we want to be like. So yeah, we're like definitely always this finger, always this finger, always this finger, always this finger, depends. Always this finger, always this finger, depends. Now, but look at how this overlaps the major scales. Like you've got this part, and then this stuff out in front of it, so they are the same notes. Yeah, so kind of like stereo instructions for this is using an octave to figure out where you are and play those notes a whole bunch. Cool, so then talking about rakes and sweeps and stuff like that, a huge part of it, like we were saying, is like, range of motion. With, you can apply that to strumming too. If we think about how we strum, it's a lot of like, we don't just move in this area, aside from when we're doing, power chords or metal stuff or, hard rock stuff or whatever. So yeah, like, going, it's like a golf swing. You just gotta go the same amount of attack through the whole thing. And then, so right hand wise. Left hand wise, we're going in slow-mo. Not just, that sounds like a chord. That sounds like I'm playing lead. And this is one of like, should feel like a pain in the ass, back to like the Mr. Miyagi speech, like totally just like, be like, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. Like, eliminating rhythm when you're first doing something is like super integral to actually starting to absorb the thing on the level of I intend to remember this forever versus I'm going to take the test and then forget it. It's like literally the same part of our brains for, say, slowing stuff down and working in sections is how to approach the memorization stage of this stuff. So, and then specifically the thing we were doing there, like going with, this is a way to do it for certain stuff. Yeah, just using your pinky there, and that's no different than like kind of this, I'm doing stuff around this shake thing, which while we're at it is part of a major scale. So like that's all the same stuff. It just kind of goes. Sometimes you favor strong fingers and do the right box thing we were doing, and sometimes you need, a 4-finger approach doing the major scale stuff we did. Cool. So we also looked at like having a dampen on our right hand, going like, and not hearing, which is just like you put the pick on the string. Seems like it would be difficult, then you realize you've been doing it all the time. Great, so, learn some solos. There's no way around learning other people's riffs. This isn't the type of thing where you like, when you hear people talking about how they learn to play,